Top of the morning to you all. My name is Joe, and today I'm here to talk about Far and Away with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. Just a little warning here. If I go in and out of an Irish accent, just bear with me. I'm in an Irish spirit, as you can tell. You gotta have Snoopy with the Irish spirit in you. Otherwise, what's the point? Okay, getting too crazy. Let's move on with the review, shall we? Far and Away tells a story of a peasant farmer named Joseph Donnelly, played by Tom Cruise, whose father passes away from a really horrible accident, and he's later evicted by their landlord, Daniel Christie, and his house is burned to the ground. So in an act of revenge, he gathers up some supplies and an old musket to go after Daniel Christie and murder him in an act of revenge. But when he shows up there, he runs into Daniel Christie's daughter, Shannon, played by Nicole Kidman, and with a lot of movies like this, a romance develops between the two along the way. They both travel to America, to Boston, in order to earn some money, in order to join the Oklahoma land race that happened in 1893. Joseph wants to own his own property, his own land, after being evicted from his own property by his landlord. And Shannon wants to break away from her pretentious rich lifestyle and live a life of her own in freedom. Like a lot of romance movies, they both bond over the fact that they want to have something better than what they have. So they embark on a journey together, and they go off to find out whatever that might be. And various shenanigans ensue along the way, like Joseph gets involved with bare fist boxing in order to get some money to travel out west, and Shannon, having the feisty temper that she has, gets herself into certain kinds of trouble as well.
Take Friday as well, you spineless little fraction of a man.
Now, from what I could tell, not too many people talk about this movie, and I think it's pretty underrated, personally. I'm not saying that this is one of the best movies that I've seen. In comparison to the rest of Ron Howard's filmography, at least the ones that I've seen, I wouldn't call this grade A material. I would say this is probably above average at best, but me personally, probably one of the worst offenders. I personally really like this movie. I always enjoy watching it whenever I'm in the mood for it, especially around St. Patrick's Day. Yeah, you could say that the characters are very simple-minded, they're very cliche, but I personally don't really mind it. I think it's fine. Not every movie can be The Quiet Man with John Wayne. Not everything can be on that level, but there's a number of people out there who like it, and you know what? If a film speaks to you, none of that should really matter. Visually, I think this movie is a really good movie to look at, and it feels very much like it came out in the 1960s or 70s, or maybe even the 50s. It feels like one of those big epic films, like Lawrence of Arabia. Because the way the film stock is, it felt like it came from the 1960s or 1970s era of film. And the wide shots, particularly of the race scene in the Oklahoma territory, is beautiful to look at, and it's very exciting. And you don't really see that type of filmmaking these days, where they actually bring a lot of extras in in order to fill up the space and make it look a lot grander, because it's actually really happening on screen. And the musical score by John Williams is probably one of his most underrated scores ever. The Irish tones that he puts in there with the flute and the deep piano keys, and the overall epic and very calm, serene type of feel that he brings to it goes really well with the imagery that we see of Ireland when Tom Cruise is traveling from his home to Daniel Christie's house. It was just hard to not get so overwhelmed by just how beautiful the movie looks. And as far as the story goes, I think that the story is pretty good. Not perfect. Like I said, the characters are pretty simple-minded. I would agree with that. And this is the type of romance story that we usually see in other films. The guy who's very poor and not the richest guy in the room falls in love with the very rich woman, kind of like Jack and Rose in Titanic, or very reminiscent of the line from The Great Gatsby, rich girls don't marry poor boys. Tom Cruise, I think, brings a lot of energy to his performance in here. He's very likable, he's very charismatic, and I root for the guy. I want him to succeed in whatever he's gonna do. And he brings a lot of his quirks that he's usually done in his other films, where he teaches Shannon how to do the laundry.
It's done.
Does it very Ethan Hunt-like. And as far as this Irish accent is concerned, he apparently got a lot of flack for his accent, saying that it sounds really off, or that it's too over the top, and that it's too muddled and too stereotypical. I'm no expert on accents. I couldn't tell you how accurate it sounded, but as far as I'm concerned, it sounds okay to me. I don't think it sounds that bad. Maybe just a little bit overblown in some scenes, but overall, I think it's pretty good. And I think Nicole Kidman is actually really good in here too, and her character is not annoying. She's not the typical, weak kind of girl who feels empowered after meeting the guy that she's swooning over. I think she's a very well-rounded character. She doesn't want to take crap from anybody, not even her own mother, who tells her how to be all like a very fancy, well-mannered type of woman. But also when she comes to America and she has to go down to the slums in order to work her way back up to where she wants to go, she shows that she's very spoiled. She doesn't like the kind of conditions that she's living in. She's used to the very leisure-like lifestyle that she was a part of. It makes for some really funny scenes, which also, I think this movie's got a lot of good humor in there too.
Tell me you like my hat.
You're not wearing a hat.
Say it. Say you like my hat.
You're not wearing a hat.
Say it.
Why can't you say it? Why can't you say you like my suit? Give us something we can aim at. Shag off the pair of you. There's a goat over there. Go improve your love life. And probably one of the best parts of this movie is whenever Joseph gets into a fight, whenever he says,
I've no wish to fight you.
There's no wish to fight me.
pretty much guarantees that there's going to be a throwdown. So if he ever says that to you, run. He does it to his brothers, and he even does it to a horse in the land race as well. He actually punches a horse. Hey, only Tom Cruise can do that. Nobody else can do that but Tom Cruise. And then there's a character, Stephen Chase. I don't know the actor's name. He's very much like Billy Zane's character in Titanic. Not quite as exciting though. I don't want to compare it to another movie, but he's fine. He's that typical, rival boyfriend. And Shannon's father, played by Robert Prosky. You might know him from movies like Mrs. Doubtfire and Rudy. And he has a couple of funny moments in here too, like, these weapons belong to my father's father. His father's father was an ass. And as far as the romance between Joseph and Shannon, I like the romance, actually. I felt like they were building to something legitimate, and she didn't annoy the hell out of me like certain romances do in other movies. I felt like there was actually a legitimate connection there, and since Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman were married for a while, I think it actually really helps in this one. And it especially shows at the end when it looks like Joseph has died from a brief confrontation with Stephen Chase.
I loved you from the first time I saw you.
I wondered about her.
You could say that it's very sappy and very puppy dog-like, but you know what? I like it. I think it's fine. As far as some of the problems, I think the pacing is a little bit slow. It's not perfectly paced at times. Sometimes it feels like it goes on a little too long, and I felt like they could have cut down maybe a couple minutes to maybe 10 minutes off of it. But then again, every scene has an important part that I don't really know what scene they would have cut out. Just think that sometimes it goes on a little too long and there's not a whole lot of stuff happening. But other than that, I think Far and Away is a really good movie and one of my personal favorites to watch every St. Patrick's Day. So those are my thoughts on Far and Away. If any of you guys seen Far and Away, comment below and tell me what your thoughts are, and stay tuned for my review of the Avengers coming up soon, leading up to Avengers Endgame. I can't wait to talk about that. Thank you guys for watching, and have a happy St. Patrick's Day.